Hello, I'm Bruce Harris, former Director of Casino Operations.
Ya'orana and aloha. I'm Hina, Vice President of Sales and Marketing.
I'm Miguel Mora, former Chief Gaming Officer.
We have past and present casino executives from the top casinos within the USA and worldwide, sharing life experiences, stories, and casino tips to be successful within the gaming industry.
The term Cheques play is used in the casino business where a high amount of money is being wagered in one particular hand, alerting the table supervisor of the high stakes play.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast. Like, share, and subscribe.
Cheques play.
Cheques play.
Cheques play.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Cheques play. Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to Cheques Play Casino Podcast. I'm Bruce Harris, along here with Hina Reed, who is in Las Vegas, Nevada. I am in sunny Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And along here with me is our beautiful, talented, can I say sexy, Hina Reed?
Yes, you may say sexy. You can say sexy, sassy, and whatever.
Hey, Hina, where are you? What's going on?
Oh, I am in fabulous, sunny, snowy Las Vegas, Nevada at, very early in the morning, but...
Okay, cool. Good to see you. Good to see you. What's going on in the Hina world lately?
Oh, so there's a lot going on in the Hina world. We're coming up with the Table Games Protection Conference and busy with that. We're coming up with the IGA, which is at the end of this month. So, lots of moving and shaking going on. Lots of appointments, meetings, getting a hold of everyone and, is the booth going to be ready? What are we doing in there? That's a good thing.
Very good. So, by the way, I almost forgot. Miguel Mora is normally here with us. He's not able to be with us today. He's in Santo Domingo, the capital of the Dominican Republic. He also lives here. And so that you guys know that we have our business, Mora Harris Consulting LLC. We also have a Mora Harris Investment Holdings LLC. We're opening a cannabis dispensary in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So we have some business at the bank today that Miguel is handling. And you know what? People have told me, Miguel's kind of laid back on that podcast, But let me tell you what, if it has something to do with money and the bank, he's
killer.
He's ferocious.
Yeah, he's a killer. He is a killer.
He said, Bruce, the podcast is cool. I got to go talk to the guys at the bank.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's a killer when he wants it.
I say,
right?
Go ahead, Miguel, go. Yeah. So
I'm excited about our podcast today with the gentleman that we're going to have on our podcast. Very excited.
Yes. Cheques Play Casino Podcast was put together just solely so that we could share our experiences in the casino industry and bring along people who are experts who have made considerable strides in so many different segments of the casino industry. We have Steve Karoul, the president and CEO of Asia Consulting LLC. Steve, good morning. How are you doing? Where are you?
Good morning, Bruce. I'm actually the stand-in for Miguel Mora today. I'll be wearing two hats, fulfilling two roles, because I know Miguel would love to be here and add his input. So I'll try to ad-lib for Miguel. But once again, I'm on the East Coast of the United States. We were wind chill factor of negative 25 last week, and we're going to be at 50 degrees Fahrenheit today. So it's wild. We had 6 inches of snow yesterday, all melted today. So crazy weather. Once again, pleasure to be back. I have watched almost every one of the podcasts, and very enjoyable. You're doing a great job. I think it's something that's building momentum, and wish you much continued success.
Awesome. Well, aloha to you, Stephen. So glad you're with us today.
Cool. Thanks for being here. So let's go to Michigan, I believe. Mr. Lance Allen is with us. He's the former vice president of table games of FireKeepers Casino in Battle Creek, Michigan. Lance, good morning.
Aloha, Lance.
Aloha, Hina, and good morning, Bruce, and good morning to the other members on the panel. How's everyone this morning?
Great, great.
Is it cold in your area? I do not miss Michigan at all, but is it cold?
Cold is a relative term, but this morning it's only 37 degrees and the sun's out. So for us, you know, in the beginning of March, that's actually good weather. So we'll take it. And as of now, there is no snow on the ground, but that could change tomorrow because they are talking about a system potentially coming through and giving us 4 to 6 inches. So we'll see.
Also, hey, well, anyway, thank you, Lance, for being here. Also, we have Mr. Henry Pisano, former Vice President of Player Development at Seminole Gaming, Hollywood. Henry, good morning. What's happening, man?
Good morning, everybody. And thank you for having me on your panel, Bruce. And thank you, and good to see everyone. Good morning, Hina.
Good morning. What's it like in your area today?
Well, I'm based out of the boating capital of the world, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And you could tell by my shirt.
Hi.
And it's 77 degrees this morning, and it's going to about 84. No, yeah, somewhere around there.
Henry, I meant to say that with your shirt that you have on, that top, I love it. And I'm just picturing that you're missing the hat that goes along with the gondola.
Why didn't you tell me? I would have stopped at the party store. I'm also representing Joe Giamo today.
Yes, Joe was supposed to be with us. He's a little under the weather. You know, he's not feeling well. Otherwise, he would be here. So we'll be checking on him later. He did send his regards. So anyway, thanks, Henry. Good to see you, man. Let's just get into it. Let's chop it up. But listen, last but not least, I think he's down under, literally. He's my former COO, president, different places, properties that I've worked with. Someone that I always looked up to, and I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's chimney, really. He's the coolest guy I know, and he is a musician. Howard can blow some saxophone. This was Mr. Howard Dreitzer, former COO of Seminole Gaming. And Howard, good morning. Thanks for being here, and tell everybody where you're at and what time it is and what day it is.
Good morning. I'm in Noosa, Queensland, Australia, and it's about, let's see, right now it's about 1 in the morning. 1 in the morning, and
Friday.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here and say hello to everybody else on the panel, and look forward to what we're going to do tonight.
You guys are icons in the business. And if you think about this, when we're talking about putting this together, the movie Casino is iconic because it's really true to life form. You guys agree?
For the most part.
Yes.
So we wanted to use that as a backdrop and then talk about a few different areas within the movie. But before we get started, I had thought about this last night. I had a question I wanted to be answered. In your own words, what is more important to you, respect or loyalty? And whatever your answer is, tell us the reason why.
Okay. So for me, what was more important for me is the respect, because of the fact that our customers, doesn't matter if they have a bad day, doesn't matter if they're losing, or it doesn't matter if they're winning. The respect should always be there. It doesn't matter if they're a high roller down to someone who just wants to bet $20 and only do, you know, the least max bet, right? I mean, the least bet on the machine, because of the fact they all deserve that respect. And you never know when a high roller decides that I don't want to be in this high limit room and goes to the pennies. We just don't know, right? So they should always be treated with the exact same respect level as your high roller down to the one who just walked in your door, because with that respect level, they will always come back.
I would have to say that respect is probably the most important. The reason being is that sometimes loyalty can be misinterpreted. And just because you're loyal to someone, you may not be honest with them. You're just going to tell them the answer that they want to hear. You know, as we say to a yes man or a yes woman. But from a respect factor,
that's disrespectful.
But it's truthful.
You're really funny. Really funny. What do you mean I'm funny? It's funny, you know. It's a good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy. What do you mean? You mean the way I talk? What? It's just, you know, you're just funny. It's You know, the way you tell the story and everything. Funny how? I mean, what's funny about it?
Tommy, no, you got it all wrong.
Oh, Anthony. He's a big boy. He knows what he said. What'd you say?
You're right.
Funny how? What?
Just, you know, you're funny.
You mean,
So?
well, let me understand this, because maybe it's me, I'm a little fucked up, maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? I make you laugh? I'm here to fucking amuse you? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
No, just, you know how you tell the story. What?
No, I don't know. You said it. How do I know? You said I'm funny. How the fuck am I funny? What the fuck is so funny about me? Tell me. Tell me what's funny.
Get the fuck out of here, Tommy.
You motherfucker! I almost had him! You stuttering prick, yeah. Frankie, was he shaking?
If as I used to tell my staff, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to do a job. And hopefully they will respect my decision and understand the decision that I've made and why I've made it. And if they're able to do that, then hopefully I will earn their loyalty, because they will realize that Lance is making the right decisions for the right reasons.
I agree. I think you earn both respect and loyalty, but respect is very important. And it's something that my parents always taught myself and my brothers and sisters growing up, is to be respectful. And I think if you're respectful to other people, you normally get respect back. Not always, but usually you do. And you know, you earn the loyalty. And Lance, I think you said the same thing. It's it's something that's not automatic. You have to work hard, for both of them. But I've worked in many different casinos where, respect has to be mutual. And I've seen, some casino management that are just, they have Attila the Hun management style. It's brutal and yell and scream and everything else. And they don't manage, with any respect at all. They manage by fear. And I think, that's wrong, because you never get loyalty by management by fear.
Yeah. Howard, what do you think about that?
Well, I definitely think respect is the more important, but they're definitely linked. And, if you show people respect and more importantly, if they respect you for what you do or how you do it, then you'll get their loyalty. But I would say with that, I would insist on their loyalty if they were going to keep working for me. And loyalty doesn't mean to me that they would blindly do whatever I say, but it means that they would tell me the truth and they would try to execute whatever we're trying to do together. They'd be loyal to not just me as a person, but our idea and philosophy. So I really think they are linked.
You know what? That's interesting that you said not loyal to you as a person, loyal to the goal, the purpose,
Right.
Loyal to the end result, to be successful.
As a leader, you put out a philosophy and a plan, and it may not be right or perfect, but it's what you've decided to do. And and the way you do that, the way you take in other people's opinions, you may modify your plan or whatever, but once you're set on it, you want everybody's loyalty in terms of executing that plan. That's the way, to me, that's the only way you can really be efficient at getting things done.
Yeah, sometimes I will respect the position, but sometimes I will not respect that person.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one to be in too. Henry, what do you think about that?
Well, the respect, I mean, from my understanding, and I'm just talking about business, but and it's really based on, anything you get in this business is about the body of work. I don't have to have a beer with you. I don't have to go over your house and have dinner. You know what I mean? It's what you do, how you perform. And that's that's how I felt. I will respect and get that respect back because of my body of work. I put loyalty first because I think the loyalty becomes part of your integrity and who the person that you are towards other people in the business. But I'm talking about your humility, your humbleness, who you are, as that person. Now, I mean, Howard could tell you I'm not the most humble guy sometimes in the business. But the thing is that, But that's what I've learned through that, and you have to be that, and that's dedicated to the person. And also the type of person you want to emulate, like some of your, co-workers or your supervisors that you worked with. And that's how you build loyalty, and then people around you also, the way they see you,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. I think respect comes right behind that. I'll be honest with you, because to me, respect in the business is just about your body of work.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got in this business. And then also loyalty comes very few and in between also from clients, because guess what? When I was in PD, I was only as good as my next comp. So if I give you 4 instead of 2, I'm your guy. You know what I mean? So that loyalty for customers, I don't believe in that. I don't believe loyalty at all with customers.
Ooh, Hina, you hear what he said?
I heard.
I know
You know
you're
what
over
I mean?
there.
Trust me, say no once. Go ahead. Say no to $1 million customer. Go ahead. That's all I have.
There are some things that you have to say no to make sure that your company is covered, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, you have to say no. I mean, no is, no, but it just, you're a bum at that time. You know what I mean? You're being booed and you just struck out with bases loaded on the bottom of the ninth.
Mm-hmm. So let's move right along. What we're going to do is the backdrop of this particular episode, which is episode 23, everyone, to let you know, is Casino, the movie Casino, and Howard Dreitzer came up with a great name, Casino, the Real Story.
Before I ever ran a casino or got myself blown up, Ace Rothstein was a hell of a handicapper. I can tell you that. I was so good that whenever I bet, I could change the odds for every bookmaker in the country. I'm serious. I had it down so cold that I was given paradise on earth. I was given one of the biggest casinos in Las Vegas to run, the Tangiers, by the only kind of guys that can actually get you that kind of money, $62,700,000. I don't know all the details.
Matter of fact, nobody knew all the details. But it should have been perfect. I mean, he had me, Nicky Santoro, his best friend, watching his ass. We're ever given anything that fucking valuable again.
At that time, Vegas was a place where millions of suckers flew in every year on their own nickel and left behind about $1 billion. But at night, you couldn't see the desert that surrounds Las Vegas. But it's in the desert where lots of the town's problems are solved.
Got a lot of holes in the desert, and a lot of problems are buried in those holes. Except you gotta do it right. I mean, you gotta have the hole already dug before you show up with a package in the trunk. Otherwise, you're talking about half hour, 45
I actually had an example from an actual person who, one of the guys, the owner said, hey, did we're just going to say, did Mr. Harris pay his marker? And they said, no. He goes, get in the car. They gets in the car. They go to the house. They said, hey, my boy here says that you didn't pay your marker. Well, I did pay my marker. And the man is going, oh my God, it's between him and him, right? I'm gonna be the one that's buried in the desert somewhere. And he said, so you're telling me my boy that has been working for me for years is lying? Get in the car. So they get in the car and they drive in that desert that you just saw. And because he looked at his employee, he goes, get in the car behind us. He goes, what car behind us? And he turns around, there's a car behind him, just out there, clear blue sky. He gets in the car. 2 days later, the man comes with a broken arm, black guy, and paid his marker.
Howard, were you around? You weren't around back then, were you, in Vegas?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. That was all in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had I remember one time I had a guy come in that was working Golden Nugget. This was actually in the 80s, but Golden Nugget, downtown Vegas. And I had a guy running around making call bets on the blackjack tables, 200 here, 300 there. And, we were honoring it. And then he stopped all of a sudden and he said he's done. And so we said, okay, well, you owe whatever it was. I think it was like $2,000, $2,500. And he goes, I'm not paying. I mean, he's really arrogant. He goes, I'm not paying. And I'm looking at him, I'm saying, what? He goes, I'm not paying. So somehow, and this is what I liked, sort of in the movie, it was portrayed too, but it really happened to me in this instance, particularly. as I was talking to him, he was getting agitated. And my security guards, there was at least 6 of them, were coming around behind him. And in those days, they were all armed, and they were not trained in appropriate methods of restraint. Let me put it that way. And so I'm talking to the guy. He's focused on me. These 6 guards are coming up behind him, and finally he says to me, he says, "So what are you going to do about it?" And I said, "Well, why don't you take a look around?" So he looks, and he's looking at these 6 pit bulls standing there with their hands on their guns, and he got a totally different tone right after that.
Sure, absolutely.
And I said, "These gentlemen are gonna." I said, "Where are you staying?" And he said, I think he said the 4 Queens. He said, "These gentlemen are going to walk you to your room, and you're going to give them the money and come back here and pay it. How does that sound?" And he, like, all of a sudden, he was real respectful. "Oh yes, thank you, thank you, thank you."
What would have happened if he didn't have the money?
Well, he might have fallen on the way to the hotel or something like that. Yeah. Hey, Bruce, I told you about that. I think I told you about that story about the counters at Binion's Horseshoe and security at my place. But if you have a minute, it's
No, you told me. Hold on, you told me the story about you throwing the guy into the slot machine.
Oh yeah. Well, that was a long time ago. But no, there was a pretty famous case where 2 card counters got caught in Binion's Horseshoe, and they beat the crap out of them publicly. And then there was this big lawsuit that they were bringing against Binion, which ultimately was never going to go forward because they dropped it. The guys that got beat up dropped it. But then the city decided that they were going to pursue it, which was quite unusual because nobody pursued anything against Binion. And so at the time, I was at the Gold Nugget downtown, and Binion's was across the street. The agents had gone in and seized all of Binion's security records, and they had a habit there of once they would detain somebody and decide to beat them up, they'd detain them, beat them up, and take a picture of them. So they had 40 years of beatings photographed. And I knew this because my security guy came over to me and was kind of laughing about it to me, saying, "Can you believe this? They had actually photographed beating people for 40 years. He said one picture had a guy's head shoved through the wall, and like spin art, the blood was going off into lines off his face. So, we were laughing for a minute about how they could have done that. And then I looked at him and I said, "Well, this place has been here just as long. Why don't you go down and look at our records?" And he came back up and he was all upset. He goes, "We've got the exact same thing here." I said, "All right, well, time to start shredding." So we shredded everything.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, well, you definitely can't get away with that nowadays.
No.
Some of them are, some of them aren't. I mean, I know one particular, I know that one person, and a few other people around the casino where I used to work, they were just making a living out of it, but they're happy with 200, 300, 500 in and out.
Well,
there's people coming in every day making $500. Okay, so they all day, every day, but not big. I mean, they're not spreading and they're not betting blacks.
Henry's absolutely right. Is that if someone is able to come in and have the ability just to keep their bedspread, low, and only, not be greedy, only win a couple of $100, it's going to take them a long time before they get noticed, and they'll be able to get in and out and do what they need to do, as opposed to, the counter who's coming in and looking to make that big kill on that one time. You may realize, it may take you years before you find this individual. Wait a minute, they're counting. We didn't even realize this, and they've been, they're up, maybe over a couple of years, 20, 30,000, which, in the casinos world is not a lot of money. But, for this guy that comes in and only buys in for a couple of $100 and he plays, nickel dime, and then he's out the door.
Yeah, we had a customer at the casino here. He was like a grandfather to everybody. Nobody would ever suspect him. He was the sharpest guy in the joint. But he had the whole play. He had the whole deal, with being that elderly person, friendly person, bringing you coffee to the dealer. Always played. Here's the best. He always played on graveyard, where he always thought that they were like more tired, like around 8 o'clock in the morning. So he would be the one to bring the donuts in. Okay. Meanwhile, he's bringing in the donuts and he's walking out with the cake.
With the dough.
Yeah. Who was it, Henry?
I'm not going to mention no names. Speaking about all this is that, another big problem for the casino side of it with trying to, counter with a lot of these sharp guys is that the management is weaker because of the expansion of casinos watered down the expertise, and you could see the people coming into the industry today are just not as, I don't know, astute to the whole the way the industry is, knowing that there's that much money under one roof and everybody's looking to steal it. They don't have that concept, I don't think, as much as like I think we did back when we started. When I started, right, Howard was with me, basically from the beginning. And we had a little bit more edge to us, I think, when we started. There wasn't that many. We were just the second jurisdiction to open in the United States. We were under a really big microscope at the time, Atlantic City, and we wanted to be good at it. And we were. I think it's the mentoring that came from everyone, from all the veterans from Vegas and everything, and of course, my mentor, it just gave you that again, going back to the body work, it just gave you that respect for the business, for what we did, who we were. But I don't know whether that's there today. I don't know whether we have that same passion today as we did back in the day. I don't know if we have the same skills as we did back in the day.
Well, Henry,
Yes.
Back then and before, even when I was in Vegas, it was all about game protection, and being nice to the customers was, we used to talk about it, but it wasn't the overarching thing that it is today. Today, there's no game protection. They all think the eye in the sky is doing it, and I've been up there. I'm telling you, they're not doing very much. And they're all just, you're like clerks, and they're trying to be super nice to the customers, and that's all well and fine, but to my experience, very little game protection goes on in the pits anymore.
Exactly. It's like working at the Dunkin' Donuts. You're just serving the customer donuts and coffee.
Right.
And that's not your job.
The sharpest guys that I remember when I first had the opportunity to move out of the jurisdiction that I grew up in working, which was Atlantic City, the sharpest guys that were game protection experts all came out of Vegas, Tahoe and Reno. And also Ohio too, Steubenville.
Well, I want to say is that, the guys from Steubenville, we had a big joke about them, is that they're the best guys in the business. Just ask any one of them. Yeah, that was the Steubenville guys. As far as I'm concerned, the Lake Tahoe and Reno guys didn't see any action. If they saw a $25 chip, they would run.
Well, I noticed that when I went out to work in Las Vegas as a casino manager at a downtown joint, most of those guys worked there for 30 years. They were expert manipulators with their hands when it came to, because they dealt single deck, and so they were great manipulators of cards, dice, chips, and everything else. I think what was his name? I'll think of it later. He came out with a great book. Scarnes. I think it was Scarnes. Scarney. He worked at which was Fitzgerald's, but what was it before Fremont, the street, that casino? He was there, and he was a dealer and a floor person. Steve and Howard, this guy Scarnes?
I think, Howard brought up a good point. I started in the 70s as well with Caesars and came to Atlantic City when it opened. And was there about 11 years. But, I I came out with Jess Lenz, Bernie Resnick, Lou DeGreg. I mean, and these are guys that all had I mean, long years in Las Vegas. I mean, and these guys were really pros, Larry Wolf. And part of their training is, I mean, you didn't finish your shift and finish your training. I mean, you went home and you practiced for hours at home with chips, with cards, with everything. So, I mean, your skill level was, you know, just as Henry says, was far superior to what I see today. And I travel a lot, and I see this more international than I do in you know, in the regulated jurisdictions like, you know, United States, Canada, but in some of these third world countries, that training ethic carried over. And, you know, even when in some of the casinos I ran overseas, I mean, there was never a dead table. If it was a slow period, the casino manager would take everybody, bring them over, and you'd have 3 hours of live training going on in the casino rather than sitting there looking at the, you know, at the walls. And so kind of a different approach than what you see today.
Lance, what about you?
I think that the big difference in what we see now compared to what we saw when we were in our infancy in the industry is we wanted to be good. We wanted to be better. And as Steve said, we went home every night and we practiced cutting checks. You know, we practiced, you know, pitching cards. The business has changed, unfortunately, to the point from a modernization where, yes, we understand this is all about decisions per hour, but they've taken some of that skill set necessary away from the individual and put it into various different types of machinery. So you don't have to have the skill sets necessary that we had in order to succeed, in order to be good. So to your point, these kids today don't understand the history of the business, and they can't appreciate it to know what those who've gone before them have gone through. And, you know, as the movie alludes to, the history and the stories of how people got to where they are. And to be able to hear these stories, either being involved yourself firsthand or hearing the stories firsthand from someone who was actually there, that had a big impression upon people. Nowadays, these kids, if you ask them where was the Stardust, they're going to go, what's that? You know, they just don't have the same drive and determination and that we had when we were broke in. As the industry has gotten diluted, we've lost that knowledge and we've lost that ability to pass it down. But I also think that there's a lack of individuals who want to teach. And if you don't want to be able to, information doesn't do any good if you keep it to yourself. You've got to be able to share that with others so that they can continue to spread that to everyone, you know, everyone within your organization or within your circle. Because the more knowledge that they have, the better off you as an entity are.
Yeah. Hey, so let's take a look at part of the clip, and I think it goes into the skim. This is pretty interesting. You guys remember this here? You're going to see that segment, Howard, when they're talking about the people watching people, I think.
Yeah, I always like that.
I think it's in this one.
Make it real compared to what
In Vegas, everybody's got to watch everybody else. Since the players are looking to beat the casino, the dealers are watching the players. The boxmen are watching the dealers. The floormen are watching the boxmen. The pit bosses are watching the floormen. The shift bosses are watching the pit bosses. The casino manager is watching the shift bosses. I'm watching the casino manager, and the eye in the sky is watching us all. Plus, we had a dozen guys up there, most of them ex-cheats, who knew every trick in the house. Comes cash. Tons of it. I mean, what do you think we're doing out here in the middle of the desert? It's all this money. This is the end result of all the bright lights and the comp trips, of all the champagne and free hotel suites, and all the broads and all the booze. It's all been arranged just for us to get your money. That's the truth about Las Vegas.
So that's Bill Allison right there.
Yeah.
How you know Bill?
Yeah, Bill was actually the technical advisor on the movie, and they decided to use him.
He was my pit manager at the Claridge Casino. I was a dealer. He was just perfect hair, and but I didn't know he was in the. Well, he was in that. The movie wasn't out back then, but he was buying a casino in Tonopah, Nevada, called the Mispa Hotel. Tonopah sits dead center between Las Vegas and Reno, it's like 500 miles out of Vegas. And I saw the Mispa Hotel. I said, "Hey, let's stop." And there's my old pit boss owns the place, and we went in there. There's Bill.
Yep.
And I met his son Dennis, and treated us to lunch and everything. It was great seeing him. And I hadn't seen him for 23 years. And then I was working as a casino manager in Las Vegas at the Fitzgerald's. And I go outside and they're filming a segment of CSI Las Vegas. And I'm walking past the set. Somebody says, Bruce Harris. 23 years later, and it was Bill. He was on the set. His character was a newspaper salesman, the newspaper stand. He said, "Hey man, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time." And he was his main job was a casino host at the New York.
Yeah.
And then I said I was the manager across the street here. He says, "Oh man, give me a call." He gave me his card, and that was the last time I saw him. And apparently, he passed away in April of 2016.
Yeah.
It's interesting watching that because, I've been in many count rooms too. And I worked at Sun City in South Africa for about 2.5 years. And we had at the Sun City at the Palace Hotel and in the main count room, it was amazing. One day, all of a sudden, it was like a flash, a second, but somebody took a manila folder and flashed it in front of the security camera. It was a blip and nobody really paid any attention to it. But when they did the count, when they counted the $100 bills, they called them bricks.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 bricks that were missing on the count. And that's $100,000 or $50,000 each, and nobody knew anything. So, anyways, the security department, were basically unregulated. They went to every single person that worked that shift, went into their accommodations because everybody lived at Sun City, staff housing, tore the place apart. And finally, they got one girl who cracked under the pressure, and she admitted that passed it off to somebody else, who passed it to somebody else, and went out to one of the townships on the outside where the local staff lived. And they just drove out there and went in and tore the place apart, and they found the money. But it's amazing how, that was a very organized, scheme. But, some of the other ones are so simple and so, you just got to be careful all the time. If people want to steal, they're going to figure out a way to do it.
Steve, it's funny when you talk about count rooms. One of the properties in the Hard Rock portfolio was a small rural property in Brighton, Florida. And they had an incident there, and I was reviewing the tapes from the count room, and I'm looking at it, and one of the guys counting is wearing a cast. And I'm going like, hang on, why is somebody with a cast working in the count room? And they said, why? Well, what's the problem with that? I mean, they couldn't even visualize a problem with it. I said, the tables are clear, the chairs are clear for a reason, to prevent places for people to hide money. And, you got somebody wearing a cast, which means they put all kinds of money in there, or chips or whatever they wanted. And that's how unsophisticated they were about it. They didn't even realize it was an issue.
Hey, I'm going to play that scene one more time, but this time, Henry, would you explain the skim? The scene where Bill is walking into the count room.
Okay.
Well,
the way I heard it, and I heard it firsthand, it was that here you go with the coins back in the day. What they used to do was weigh the buckets of coins to determine the amount of dollars. So what happened is that they had a kill switch on the scale, and that's how they really started getting the money out by killing.
to skim.
Yep, they had the kill switch on the scale, and believe it or not, nobody caught it until it all came to fruition back, over like what 1980, and that's they knew exactly how much they actually had, and he would walk in just like that. He knew the amount that he had to take, and that was basically it.
But Howard, so
Yeah.
we have soft count and hard count, which are separate. Now this was all together back then.
No, they were separate. There was soft and hard count.
Okay. Oh, the other room was hard count where they had the conveyor.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
These counters here have regular clothes, like regular pants. Now, normally, am I wrong, Howard? They have like jumpsuits. No, nothing. I mean, I don't know back then I don't think even back then they would be able to wear like just normal street clothes into a count room.
Yeah, I don't recall what the count room people wore back then, but yeah, I would think, I don't know, that might be a little movie stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just a good observation, man.
Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff.
It's interesting when you look at that and you think about all of the security measures they have in place nowadays, and what, at least from the movie perspective, how this guy just walks in with a briefcase into the room with a coat in a suit. We're talking about everything being clear, and he can stuff stuff anywhere, and he just walks in and walks out like it's no big deal. Like the camera never sees him or anything. So obviously you knew that everybody was in on this.
Oh yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Well, I have an incident where one of my former customers used to work at Caesars and used to work at a lot of these places and some of them aren't even, it's been imploded. But they did say there's been times where they had the count room and they went, yeah, we're missing. So there'd be missing money. And they said, well, let's just count it again tomorrow. And when they counted again the next day, it showed up. So there are some things that were being done off to the side, and then there are some things that were absolutely being taken. But the ones that were being done on the side and then the money came back, no one was able to say, I don't know where it went. We counted and boom, all of a sudden it showed up.
Sure, of course.
Right? Yeah. So I was amazed at that, 100%. And I even asked, I said, who would you rather work for today? Way back in the day when, cash was king, right? Or, that what we're doing today, they said back in the old days, because we were highly taken care of.
I had something for you guys. This is something I think is going to be very interesting. Back in the day, when the movie was shot here, back in these conditions, we would let players play. They would do so many different things. We would tolerate certain behavior. How would that be handled now, Howard?
We give them a comp.
I love this dealer.
So talking about the behavior of the player now, okay? And, we know it was always said it's a business decision whether we let somebody play or tolerate this type of behavior.
Well, I don't think any of that would be tolerated, quite frankly. Not the violence, obviously. Maybe that. Anyway.
Okay.
That one you have to get out there.
So true story. That's in America, but we're all in different countries, right? I mean, some of us, you worked in Turkey. You worked in Turkey and a lot of places, Steve, right? And, in Vietnam and Singapore, Macau. We're here in the Dominican Republic. Real quick story. We have a player. I wish I could say his name. He couldn't play anywhere else. This guy is so volatile. It's unbelievable. But he would lose 5-6 million, pay it the next day. Guess what? We let him play here. We actually, while I'm talking, you'll see, I'm going to pull up, it'll be video of holes in this concrete walls. I mean, these plaster walls. It's going to be holes and chips taped to the wall as I'm talking, next to the holes. So he would beat the place up. And then when he got done playing, he would take a $2,000, $5,000 chip, tape it to the damage area. He'll take a $2,000 chip, tape it next to the hole that he would punch in the wall. Then he would take another couple $500 chips and tape it to more holes and so forth to all the damage.
There was one big customer from Mexico used to come to Caesar's Palace all the time. His name was Kamal Nassif. And that was back, I mean, a long time ago. At that time, he was a multi-million-dollar player. But this guy was so volatile. I mean, when he lost, he'd be swearing, cursing the dealers, throwing drinks at him. You know, sometimes he'd pick up chairs, throw a chair across the table, but they kept letting him play and letting him play.
Yeah.
And finally, one time, he picked up an ashtray, a heavy crystal ashtray, threw it across the floor and hit the dealer. And that was finally the straw that broke the camel's back, where they, threw him out. The next day, other casinos were inviting him to come play.
The dealers here would fight to be able to deal to him, because if you dealt to him or with a supervisor in the area or a pit manager, Miguel gave him an extra $100 in their salary. And that's huge. They make average $300 a month. And he gave him another $100 in their paycheck. Plus, when he cursed him out and called them all kind of, he would say, "You fucking retard! Your kids look like," and he says crazy things. They didn't care because they didn't understand what he was saying. You know, they speak Spanish. They didn't understand. A lot of them didn't speak English.
There's another big one from Australia. The wealthiest man in Australia named Kerry Packer.
Absolutely.
And the same thing. I mean, he'd come in and he'd go into the gift store, and if he liked the pretty face attendant that was working, he'd say, "I want her to sit beside me as my good luck charm."
The biggest tipper in the world, though.
Exactly. I mean, and she'd walk out at the end of the night with $30,000 in tips. I mean, so, and he was the most arrogant, I mean, repulsive, nasty individual you could imagine. But in those days it was tolerated. Today, I don't think it would be tolerated at any casino in the United States. I mean, overseas, yes, but here I think it would be very difficult to get away with that type of behavior.
Yeah, I have an incident. I was a pit boss at the Trump Castle, and Howard, you know the player. I can't remember his name. He used to be with American Express back in the day, and he was, like that, like just abusing my dealer. And I was like, "Go over." He'll stop. Abusing. I would go over. He would stop. I knew him from working at the Golden Nugget. And finally, the dealer just dropped. As he was dealing, he just went back and dropped on the floor. This idiot player turns around, throws a $500 chip on him and goes, "What's wrong with him?" I mean, are you kidding? I stopped the game. I said, "No, you can't play here, at this time anymore." But the insulting, and never mind what he called them, but when he threw the $500 chip on him, because the dealer really was flustered, like to the point where he just couldn't take it anymore. I mean, and I kept going over. Him, he was like, "I'll call Trump." All that bullshit, And none of my bosses at the time were ready to do anything about it, but except for like just walking over. But when he threw the $500 chip on top of this poor kid, just abusive. Look, we're all dealers and we all started that way. And I just want to say one thing: we all started as dealers, and we always respected the supervisors that actually took our backs, especially with a rude and nasty client. So, I always try to be that guy when I started moving up in the ranks that, protect the dealer all the time, because they can't protect themselves because they have to sit there and take it. And
correct.
And,
that wasn't Labudi, was it?
No, he was with No, you know what it was? The guy was with American Express. He was.
Yeah. He went to jail. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I know who you mean.
Yep.
I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he knew everybody. Like he was best friends with Wynn. He was best friends with Trump. Well, he was the CEO of American Express at the time.
Yeah.
But Labudi, I remember that there was a class action lawsuit behind him because they were switching the dealers when he at his request. At his request, so it became a discrimination lawsuit.
I could tell you a funny twist on that. I mean, Caesars got nailed for that. And a friend of mine, I think one of the attorneys for Caesars, asked me to come testify at their commission hearing because he played a lot at Trump Plaza at the time too. And he wanted me to testify because what we had done when Labuti did that. And Labuti, I won't say he wasn't prejudiced, he probably was, but it was more about luck for him. So when he started pulling that crap about, you know, I don't want this dealer, I don't want that dealer, I told him, you're going to get like for like. So if you don't like this black female, you're going to get another black female, because otherwise it's, you know, it looks like it's prejudicial. So if it was a black male, he got another black male.
Same race, same gender.
Same race and gender, yes, just to eliminate it. So I went and testified in front of the commission. This is the funny part. The commission said, well, since you put that rule in effect, that must have meant you were doing it the wrong way before. I'm going, wait a minute. You know, I can't win for losing here. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was nothing to me. I was trying to help Caesars, but I don't think I helped them very much.
Do you remember is when the Asian gentleman was playing and he packed and he beat him for a couple of million, and he was packing up all the towels and all the towels and the robes from the hotel, put them in the suitcase. He was leaving. Howard, you know that story?
The politicians came cheap. We could handle them. It's a whale like KK Ichikawa who plays $30,000 a hand in Baccarat. That's the one you really gotta watch. He plays fast and big, and he has the cash and the credit to turn out your lights. About a year ago, he cleaned out a couple of casinos in the Cayman Islands. Downstairs, he takes us for $2 million, and upstairs, he takes free soap, shampoo, and towels. Another billionaire cheapskate who loved his free rooms, free private jets, and $2 million of our money. But we got him back. I had our pilot tell him the plane was on the fritz.
What the hell went wrong? I'm awfully sorry. I can't understand it. These mechanical things, you know, they happen. Hey, better here than up there, you know what I mean?
Then he missed the commercial flights connecting with Japan.
I can't believe that there's a convention. There's never...
We got him back with a whole floor of rooms to himself. Sorry you missed the plane.
Where'd you get to my money back?
No gambling. And once he was back, he played small. He bet 1,000 a hand instead of his usual 30,000 a hand.
The bank was a natural 8 over 5.
But I knew the trick with whales like Ichikawa was that they can't bet small for long. He didn't think of it as winning 10,000. He thought of it as losing 90,000. So he upped his bets. Until he dropped his winnings back and gave up $1 million of his own cash. In the casino, the cardinal rule is to keep them playing and keep them coming back. The longer they play, the more they lose. In the end, we get it all.
Well, I'm sure it's happened more than once, and I'm sure it happened in Vegas, but it happened at Showboat when we were there.
Really?
Just before we were there, this Asian customer came in who lost $2 million roughly. And then while he was there, he won it back and he won $2 million. And then he wanted to leave. And they did the same thing. They took him to the airport and he said, oh, we had engine problems.
Yeah.
And he came back and he lost the $2 million he had won back, plus his original $2 million. And when I came in after that incident, but I was tasked with trying to collect because this guy lived in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And the junket rep, who's still a junket rep, so I won't mention his name, but he just kept trying to put me off, kind of getting strong in the collection effort. And finally, you know, we were at one meeting, it had been a year he'd owed us this money, this $2 million. And he said, oh, well, we don't want to offend the customer. And I said, you know what? I'm pretty offended right now. He owes $2 million. He hasn't paid us for a year. He won't even really talk to us. I'm hiring an attorney. I hired an attorney, and this is a learning experience for me, but I was always told that in Asia, you know, it's very hard to collect, and it is almost impossible in some places. But in Hong Kong, they take gambling debts. Well, they used to, maybe not now. They take gambling debts super seriously. So once we got to the right channels, they went to this guy's house, and he was from a prominent family there, and they arrested him. They actually handcuffed him and took him to jail. And then we got our money. And that was the end of it.
You know, we're really educators. You know, we're not trainers, we're educators. And, you know, and somebody once said to me, we train donkeys, we train horses, we train dogs, but we educate people. So, you know, with that in mind, I said, why don't I go back and rewrite this, but from the standpoint of, you know, easy to understand English, because a lot of the people around the world, you know, English may be a second language. Keep it simple and right to the point. And so I changed my whole style of writing to be educational in format, and it just took off. And as I say, I've published for probably, you know, almost every major gaming publication. You know, I've been a keynote speaker in almost every gaming trade show. And you know, what happened is, you know, I started getting just inquiries from all around the world for people asking for more information, asking for advice.
Nice.
It used to be you know, Ann Landers. I don't know, Henry, have you ever heard of it? Yeah. So this was advice for the lovelorn. It was in the newspaper every morning. People would write in for free advice, and she'd be there giving them advice. An upset husband or disgruntled boyfriend or whatever. So I became the Ann Landers of the casino industry.
You know, I like that one you wrote about there was something about customers, and when do you stop letting customers be your customers or something like that. You write something like that?
Yeah. When
I like that.
When to fire a customer.
Oh, that was good.
When, why, and how to fire a customer.
Tell us about that one.
So I probably have published over 100 articles. I've posted some on my website, and then I have a blog where I have go into a little bit more information. I've got that and a few of the other more popular ones posted on the blog, so anybody can go and read them. But the only downside is, you know, you just get barraged with people that asking for help, and I hate to turn people away, but I just don't have the time. There's only so many hours in a week, and so I've had to back off. I've stopped, you know, writing a lot of the articles, and because I just don't have time. But you know, they've been helpful, and I usually refer them. That's why I started the blog. I took some of the more popular ones, and there was another one. I get a lot of inquiries. I do a lot of consulting on Asian casino marketing. I've kind of carved out a niche of being an expert in that area. And so I wrote one that says, you know, I'm not Vietnamese, I'm Chinese, because that was another big problem. Everybody looks at the Asians, and they categorize it as, you know, one size fits all. Well, it's not true. You know, Asia is not Asia. Asia is a melting pot of numerous different cultures, ethnicity, languages, customs, holidays, food, etc. So, you know, that what happens, a lot of the casinos get there and they almost brand every Asian customer as Chinese, and they start printing everything in Chinese. Every menu they come up as Chinese, and it's wrong. And so, you know, I started beginning to educate people on the different, you know, ethnicities and
so how
they have to treat each
how
one.
does a casino distinguish? How do they understand the different culture? I mean, because that's a common thing. Do you just go up and ask somebody?
No, the first thing is you've got to understand your market, you know, and who are your customers? Where are they coming from? And a lot of that'll be dependent upon your Asian casino hosts, and you have to try to hire good people, reliable people, honest people, and then rely on them to give you an idea. And then what you want to do is you want to build your database, and that's where the casino loyalty, you know, programs come in. Is you incentivize them to join. So by joining, they get you know, they get offers, so they get promotional gifts or everything, invited for a free cruise. I mean, it could be anything. So by offering this incentive, you build your database, you find out what language they would prefer to, you know, get messages in. and then you begin to segment it. And so here in the Northeast, it's predominantly number largest segment is Chinese, then it's Vietnamese, and then maybe Korean second, Vietnamese, and Japanese, and then everything Filipino, Thai, Laos, Cambodian, all mixed together.
Steve, I would have to agree with you. I've been in several different jurisdictions where we have had the same types of problems. People look at the clientele and they assume that, unfortunately, all Asians are the same, which we know is not true. And we can't understand why you're not able to maximize the potential for that particular segment of the guests until you start to dial in and realize what ethnicity are they really from? Are they Vietnamese? Are they Chinese? Are they Korean? If they're Chinese, what dialect do they speak? Because the worst thing that you can do is try to market to this particular group and market incorrectly. And I've been in jurisdictions where we've stumbled and couldn't figure it out until we went to basically the local community and said, why aren't your people coming? What are we doing wrong? And it just takes that one person to be able to tell you, well, you send something in Vietnamese when they're really Korean, or you send something in Chinese when they're Vietnamese. And unfortunately, in most cases, the casino doesn't realize this. So what we've done in the various different properties to remedy this is to go out and find out what ethnicity they actually are, and then try to hire an Asian host of that ethnicity. And if we can't do that, we'll actually see if we have someone on property who happens to be of that ethnicity, and try to utilize them as a either a host or a translator or interpreter, so that the guest understands that we see them and realize what their value is, so that we can talk to them. We can find out what they do like, what they don't like. Now you've opened up that door, because we've gone so far as to employ individuals who will bring in shows targeted just for a certain ethnic group, for the Asians. And then you bring in the show, then you bring in the food, and now you're catering directly to that individual group. And now they feel included. Now they feel welcome. They feel important.
And not insulted.
Feel that, then they will then start to give you the loyalty is what you're looking for. You want to see them come back, whether it's every week, every 2 weeks, whatever the case is, in some cases every day. You want to be able to see that. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is through building that trust, and for them to realize that you see them for who they are.
Yeah, I never really knew specifically that those things were happening or occurring. I kind of was probably guilty of the same thing. I know that they're different in cultures, but I'm thinking that they're similar in the dialect and the language and so forth. And Steve had mentioned the same like you, when you go and recruit people who are specifically of that culture, and to make them develop them into positions such as executive host or Asian marketing. And also mentioned earlier that with my crew, I was a host, and Augie Renner recruited the gentleman out of the restaurant, the Asian restaurant. His name was Ming Ling. And so Steve, but the other thing too, you had said that, they don't come back. They don't have formal training, management training. So that's a mistake. However, in this example with Ming was very sharp, very astute. He was an academic, and was very professional. And that's how Augie recognized him. And right now he ended up being I think he's a CEO of a company in Korea. So I ran into him a couple of years ago at the Tropicana in Atlantic City, and I didn't recognize him. He kept saying, Bruce, yeah. It took me a whole 5 drinks before I remember who he was. Said, oh, Ming. Yeah, we worked together for 4 years. We aged. But yeah, that's a great point, Lance. And so another side of it.
I used to attend every week. We'd have a staff meeting, and so I would always attend, the Asian staff meetings. And sometimes I would just sit there, as a fly on the wall, listening, and let the manager run it, and then I would critique him afterwards and say, look, you missed this, or we should have focused on that. And so it became it became a situation of trust where they didn't resent it. It wasn't, this guy's trying to tell me how to run my area. No, I'm trying to tell you how to do a good job so you'll be more successful. And so I've run in now to quite a few casinos that have taken this approach. They're very successful in their Asian marketing. The ones that haven't are not, and they have all kinds of problems. And so, that unto itself is a huge area, but it's also one of probably the areas with the biggest amount of opportunity, and the casinos miss. And so, we were very lucky. I worked at Caesars Atlantic City for 11 years. I was the vice president of casino marketing, and then went overseas for several years, and then came back and worked at Foxwoods for 7 years. So both of them, we had access to probably one of the largest Asian communities in the country. In New York, it was in the millions. And so then we looked and we said, ethnic marketing. Boy, that's, not just Asian, but, yes, okay, we want the Chinese, the Korean, the Vietnamese, but what about the Greeks, the Lebanese, the Russians, And so we started applying the exact same principles to ethnic marketing. And obviously the ethnic marketing wasn't as big as the Asian, but it was very lucrative because these were cultures that people were used to gambling and grew up, where gambling was acceptable. And so we started even bringing in Russian shows, Middle Eastern shows. I mean, and carved out a huge, very, very profitable niche of business. So Henry, I'm sure you've seen that in many of the casinos you worked at as well.
Well, I mean, here in Miami, I mean, we totally have a diverse market. Believe it or not, we don't have plenty of Chinese here.
Yeah.
Vietnamese is more prevalent. And the diversity comes with Russian and Israeli and also Venezuela, South American influence here in South Florida. So this was a real Asian, whatever, and it is a mix. So when we started Hard Rock in the beginning in 2004, it just became like a snowball effect to say, wait a minute. So now the people that were coming through the door didn't look like the Northeast, didn't feel like Las Vegas. It was a totally different market.
Yeah.
That we're all adapting to it, and then eventually we started picking up different cultures, and also we started picking up different employees to actually adjust to those cultures, like Vietnamese and speaking French and so forth and so on. We hired a Russian host. They could speak Russian, and it was very prevalent down here, especially, Sunny Isles and so forth and so on. So, yeah. And you have to absolutely be aware of your market. And that's really where it starts, and we did a good job with that. I think we did a good job down here with that as far as diversity goes. We got tuned in right away. I felt like because I was on the floor a lot, I'm a floor general because that's where I grew up, but that's where I'm most comfortable. I'm most comfortable on the rug.
Right.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
That's where I grew up. Going back to what we spoke about the other day, it's about that instinct thing, that feel for it, and that's what I started getting. I started getting that feel, and then we went back in, evaluated it and started hiring accordingly. As our marketing team got bigger, and we started hiring accordingly. In the beginning, like Foxwoods, and you remember, like even at Foxwoods, you're hiring local kids here that just happen to come in and apply, and you need bodies.
Yeah,
that's how it was. And here it was the same thing down here in Fort Lauderdale area. Hollywood, we just started hiring people because they were just available bodies. For my money, I mean, I'd rather hire like a used car salesman.
Right. Hey, can I transition this for a minute, guys? I really want to dig back to that subject that you mentioned, Steve, and I kind of teased it a little bit, but you ran away from me. You ran away. I tried to get you. I want to hear both of you guys talk about this. This is a great subject. I think people would really get an appreciation. And those managers that are out there can learn a lot from that subject of how do you take a customer off the ledge, or what was the title that you said, Steve? firing a bad customer or something?
Yeah, how, when, why to fire a customer.
Okay, yeah. Tell me what you think about what's the way both of you
Well,
guys.
let me tell you, Steve and I probably have totally two different ways of firing a customer. He's
good.
more elegant and and articulated about it. I'm more, let's see what happens. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Henry. Let me hear it. Let me hear your way.
No, Steve is more elegant at this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, and so ultimately, what you want to do is you want to try to make every effort possible to salvage the customer, save them, because the last thing you want to do is get rid of them. It's easy to fire a customer. You just cut them off. And but to find a brand new customer, especially a good VIP type player, it's worth the effort. So whenever we would have an incident, I would.
You mean it's worth the effort because it's difficult to find a new player to take the place of that player that you're going to lose. You're saying, is that what you mean?
Yes, and especially if he's a valuable player. But you don't want anybody that's, number one, going to try to cheat you, that's going to really totally abuse your staff. I mean, so there are reasons why you fire a customer. So what Henry said, something that really resonated well. I mean, he's a floor jockey, but I was too. And when I worked overseas, I always had my office either right off the casino floor. And I came back because my mother was quite ill. I was working overseas, and my dad called and said, Mom's quite sick. And so my wife said, Steve, you only have one mother, you've got to go home. So I came back, and right when I came back, I got a call from Bob DeSalvio, who we had worked together in Atlantic City, and he was at Foxwoods and said, I really need somebody in marketing. Would you like to work? I says, geez, it's very, very, opportune time. So I came, and so we looked around, and there was an office right in the middle of the casino floor. It was at one point in time was used as a shift manager's office, but most of the time they were never in the office because the shift managers, just like Henry said, were out on the floor unless they had to go in and do some paperwork. Mm-hmm. So I asked the president, and I said, I would like that as an office, because when you're having a dispute with a customer, you're right there, right on the floor. You can take them in and resolve it. I don't want to be in the executive office, on the other side of the building, and you're just too removed.
So that's where you had that private conversation. Because I tell you, an example I can recall, I was in Detroit, and you're talking about the market. That was in that area. Dearborn is it's the highest populated area of Middle Eastern population in the United States. And so Zeki and Boutros and Muhammad Kafal and all these names like that. And I remember pulling this particular player who was really just an asshole. He was a total jerk. But he was a big player, so a lot was tolerated. I took him to the side and I said a few words that I'm glad they weren't able to read my lips. And I made sure there weren't any witnesses. And sometimes you may have to do that, and then smile and shake his hand when everybody else was around. But he got my message, and it was just something that I had to do, So that back office, that office off the floor right there, that's convenient to take him right there to have that conversation, or other things. That's not always, it's not the bad room, but, it's a place where you have to be secluded or private, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing you have to understand both sides of the coin, Bruce. Dealers are human beings, and human beings make mistakes. A lot of times they're honest mistakes. So I found that a lot of times when the customer blew up and threw his cards or started swearing at the dealer or whatever, when we went back and we looked and we reviewed the tape or whatever, the customer was right. The dealer dealt the hand wrong. Made a mistake that just cost the guy $10,000.
Oh yeah, many times. Yeah.
So I put myself in the customer's shoes. That boy, if that was my $10,000, I'd be upset too. And sometimes I can control my temper, but other people can't. And the guy's effing the dealer and throwing the cards and pushing his drinks on the floor, and just really obnoxious. And so we would try to get him off the floor, and and I would always start with, okay, sit down, calm down. I'm here to help you. So you want to, break that animosity. I'm going to do everything I can to resolve it, but please tell me exactly what happened. And I would just listen, and I'd let him vent.
What's your take on this, Henry?
Well, I mean, in Florida, I mean, I was, I mean, I only can go back 20 years since I was here at Hard Rock. I mean, but I can go all the way back. I mean, I've seen, especially at Golden Nugget. I mean, we dealt with we dealt with everybody there. It was just an unbelievable experience. But as far as like our company here in Florida, I mean, in player development, you fire a customer, but what I was taught early on, you never lose a customer. You can fire a customer. They don't have to, because personalities never mesh. So you don't have to like, we don't get along. It's like a relationship, it's like a girlfriend. All of a sudden it comes time to break up. It's just the way it is. After like 2, 3 years, 4 years of handling somebody, it just goes sour, the relationship. So instead of losing that customer, I just hand them off. I said, listen, maybe I'm not the right fit. I know I've known you. Listen, I respect you as you're a great customer. I can't let, I'm not going to let you walk out the door because me and you don't, but I'm going to get you somebody that actually has your, a little bit better understanding of your personality or whatever, or just get you away. And so you could be happy here because I really want them to be happy on property. It has nothing to do with me.
It's not personal, right?
No, it's never. No. Well, it can be once in a while, but but what I'm saying is that you guys. I mean, I fired plenty of customers, but never lost a customer because I was taught by Charlie Myerson, and God bless him, he was my mentor, and he always preached to never lose a customer, and that's the truth, So I hand them off.
Okay. Well, listen, we got about maybe a few seconds here left on this segment of this podcast. What would you say, each of you individually, what is the biggest advice that you would give anyone that's in the casino industry or interested in to get into the casino business that would be helpful for their careers, maybe their career path, or something that will help them sustain a good mental mindset while they're in the business? What advice could you give? Lance, how about you? What would you say?
Casino, the real story, I think is very appropriate because that movie reminds me of a phrase from Dragnet. The names are changed to protect the innocent, or in this case, the not so innocent. But I think that it's a great business. We all know that we've spent, I hate to say this, but decades in this industry. We've had the opportunity to travel all over the country, all over the world. You meet some fantastic people. You build relationships, as obviously we have here all over the years. You have to be able to want to learn, keep your mind open, be willing to learn from other people and not think that you know everything. And if keep your eyes open and want to learn, there are people out there, such as ourselves, who want to pass their knowledge on, who want to teach people, to want to be able to teach that next generation, because we know how wonderful this business can be. And just the opportunity to be able to share that with others, I think, is what is our legacy.
Excellent point. Thank you, Lance, for that. Excellent. Howard?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, it's different now than when I was growing up, but I guess generally my advice should be similar in terms of, to always be learning. But my other advice would be to choose who you work for carefully, and not just the person, but the company. But obviously the person you report to is important too. And if you don't respect them, and for good reason, don't be afraid to make a move and get somewhere where you can respect who you work for and where you can learn more. Because chances are, if you don't respect them, you're not learning much from them anyway. I always felt that becoming technically as good as you can is important. It's not everything, but it helps you to be able to perform the technical aspects of your job well, which will help you be promoted. But you have to combine that with just basically enjoying people, and that includes the people you work for.
So would you think that, is it like learning golf? You can get into it at any age? Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you need to be young to do it. No, not at all. Henry, what would you say would be something that you would pass on, most important or good advice you would offer?
I think the best advice I have right now is to take this show right here on the road and go to every casino and, basically sit down with either the brass or whoever and actually, do and say exactly what we're talking about and, give them our experience, strength, and hope for the casino, moving forward. And actually, I think that would be probably the best thing we all could do together. But again, do they want to hear us? Do they want to hear about reality, what we know? And a lot of them, like, you're looking at some of these CEOs today, they're like 30 years old, 35 years old. I think our experience is invaluable. I think that something like this, a cluster of us, together, and I mean, basically, like, just pay our airfare and buy us lunch. We'll be there.
How many travel business class?
Huh? Yeah, well, whatever it is, you know what I mean? I mean, I hear you, Howard. But I think that's probably the, and this, like we were talking about before, how do you build instincts? How do you train? Training sometimes with these casinos is there's no ROI, they think. So now when you have accountants running these joints, it's a whole different feel, you know what I mean? So and they won't, and I don't know what, like I said again, I don't know whether they want to hear us, and I think they're really missing a big chunk of experience that's out there. And it's not just the circle that we have here. There's a lot of veterans out there that, the casinos don't take advantage of. They don't take advantage of the knowledge that's out there, and to actually, because they don't see the holes in their product.
It's actually worse than not taking advantage. They actually don't think it adds value.
And yeah, well, guess what? It does, because, let me tell you something.
Yes, it does. Yep.
Yes, it does. And so Bruce, I'm giving you the challenge. Get a road show going. We're available.
Steve, what about you? Any parting words, meaningful advice you can give folks who are listening to this?
A couple of things. One, I think we were all very, very lucky and fortunate to start in the industry when we did, because I think the growth years were the fun years. I mean, I loved working in the casino industry. I mean, I couldn't wait to go to work every day. I went in excited. I was happy. I was continually motivated. And then what happened? The industry began to develop, and it began to change. And when I first started in the 70s, I mean, you had Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, and then then Atlantic City, and then a couple of riverboats. And now there are over 1,000 casinos in the United States between Indian gaming and all the jurisdictions. So what's happened is the industry's gone through a metamorphosis and change dramatically from when we started. And and it's a different industry. So you have a huge upward mobility program, and somebody, I think, Henry or Lance or somebody hit on it earlier, that a lot of the people don't get the training that they should have, and they're next thing you know, they're go from dealer to shift manager in 3 years. I mean, it's it's impossible to gain the amount of knowledge that they really should have. So now when I'm going out consulting, as a norm, it's amazing. Most of the properties I go into, everybody's unhappy. I shouldn't say everybody, but a large percentage of the people, the employees, are unhappy. They're not motivated. They see the career as kind of a dead-end career. And I think this is something that, we need to begin to impart this information to management, because it's not all about bottom line. That's short term, and long term is called sustainability. And how do you keep your labor force motivated? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them happy? And that's part of our responsibility. Second thing, as a new employee, I tell people today, a lot of it is going to depend on you. And if this is an industry that you like and you want to make a career, then make the effort to learn. I says there are books out there you can buy. There's a lot of information on certain websites. You can read educational articles. Teach yourself. Also look to try to identify a qualified, good mentor and see if you can get close to them. And a lot of them, honestly, they're probably too busy, but maybe they'll give you an hour once every 3 months to just sit down and have a Coca-Cola or a cup of coffee and pick their brain, or just somebody that you emulate and can, that you want to be like, and follow their career and see how do they handle themselves in the casino? How do they manage and motivate their staff? Because that's what you want to do. And so maybe you're starting off as a dealer, but you've got a foot in the door, and a lot of the casinos look to promote from within. So, if you develop certain skill sets, and whether, maybe you're going to school nights for accounting, or maybe you're going to school for marketing or whatever, try to move around within the company. But the one thing is, if you find that you're not happy in that company, get the hell out. It's the wrong place. Look for another job, look for another casino, but look for something that you're going to be happy at. Because if you're not happy now, you're going to be miserable later on. Because 2-3 years down the road, you're liable to be stuck in that same position, where it's going to be more and more boring, and you're not doing a justice to yourself or your family. The third point is, none of these casinos generate loyalty. I mean, I used to be the cheerleader, always preached loyalty, 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 until I realized that the organizations are only loyal to themselves. So your loyalty has to be to yourself and your family. But by being happy and being motivated and being productive, you're going to provide benefit to the casino. So it's a symbiotic situation, but the ultimate responsibility for your career has to fall on you, and you have to make the effort to try to learn wherever you can. And the casino's not going to run a lot of in-house training programs. They may run some occasional seminars, but make that effort to talk to the people, like us, that have been in the industry for a while, that maybe you can learn. See if there's anything that's published. Read whatever you can, but take the responsibility for your own career.
Lance, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thanks for participating and being here with us today. Steve, Euro Asia Consulting LLC.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Good to see you all.
Absolutely. And Henry as well. This started with you. You and I were talking about getting together, and next thing you know, it kind of morphed into, let's call Howard, let's call Steve, and it was a great idea to get together. Thank you so much for joining, and appreciate your contributions and your positions and your knowledge for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Howard Dreitzer, I owe you big time. Just put it on layaway, man. Put it on my account. 2 o'clock in the morning.
I'll see you at your shop.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to see everybody.
All you guys. Thanks a lot.
Best.
Cheques Play. Everybody likes, share, and subscribe. Steve, Lance, Henry, and Mr. Dreitzer. Thank you so much. Cheques Play. See you guys later.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Good seeing everybody.
Thank you.